Radio Free Skaro.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Radio Free Skaro, episode number 761. I am Stephen in Edmonton.
Warren in Vancouver.
And Chris in Edmonton.
It's fall. I think it's officially autumn now. Is it?
Is it 20th? I think 21st is the official time.
Well, sometimes it varies.
We're somewhere around the autumnal equinox.
Around there, yeah. I think fall. People call it fall because the leaves fall, but really in Edmonton it should be just called fell because a lot of the leaves are already they leave in a week. Like there's a big gust of wind that comes in late September and just blows all the leaves off the trees, and then we sit here with barren trees waiting patiently for the first snowfall, which often happens a week later. So,
or at least the first frost warning.
We just have leaves. That's it.
We had frost warnings. We
zipping around.
Yeah. I mean, this year of all years, I'm hoping for an early winter, which apparently it's not going to be the thing, according to the Farmer's Almanac, probably.
Well, we had the second worst atmosphere in the world last week.
That's true. Yeah, it's drifting a little bit. The wildfires in California have sort of drifted up, and it's a little bit.
Not sort of. They sure as hell.
Yeah, well, it's even up here. It's even up here a little bit today. But I'm hoping for an early winter, if only because I like to play hockey, but I do not trust my fellow citizens in the ice hockey arena to be
Or anywhere else.
Taking proper precautions. So I haven't gone back to play hockey, and it's my one outlet for exercise. And so I'm hoping for a super early winter, flash freezing. Then they could just flood.
It forces quarantine upon us.
That too. They could flood outdoor rinks, and I could go out and skate and shoot pucks on my own and not have to worry about other humans and stuff. But I don't think it's going to happen. So I'm, as I said last week, I'm looking forward to my my Lego Moss Icy Cantina set coming, because that'll help kill at least a couple days. But October and November are going to be long months for me with no...
Nay, years, because that's how it feels. I can't even remember pre-pandemic anymore. That's how bad this is.
Yeah, well, it's odd. It's fascinating that, two things about pandemics and stuff. That Doctor Who actually aired this calendar year. It's tough still to think about that. But
doesn't feel like it.
No.
And that we had Galley.
That we had Galley is one thing. When Robert Smith came on the podcast early on in the pandemic, when was that? I don't know. April?
That's March.
March. Well, no.
March, maybe April.
Because he and Graham came on to talk about their book, and then Robert came back and we talked about the pandemic, and he was sort of, go back and listen to it, the episode that I can't remember the number of, so Google it. But he said, we'll go back, we'll come out in lockdown and stuff. Like it's this thing that he sort of seemed to expect. What happens with pandemics? Like we'll loosen the restrictions, which they are. We'll take them for granted, which we are. And so he says, we'll probably just sort of go back into lockdown for a little bit. And as you say, Warren, it feels like, we're kind of gearing up to just say, let's hunker down again.
Pre-show recording, I noted that in Vancouver, it's not that we're in lockdown, but people just seem to be kind of like on Saturday night, there was not a lot of activity happening out of doors. So yeah, it's kind of, people are just kind of like stealing themselves for it.
Yeah. Is it the smoke though? I mean, because nobody wants it.
That's probably part of it too. Yeah.
Episode 739, Lockdown of the Daleks. April 19th.
April 19th. What heady days when we thought, well, here we go. Let's just get through the next couple months and maybe we'll get this thing beat.
Yep.
Not yet.
Featuring a Miniscope of Paul Wilmshurst, another director like today's Miniscope. Nudge, nudge.
No. Well, that would have been great, apart from the nudge, nudge. The segue was...
I think it adds a frisson to it.
I suppose. Wayne Yip is in the Miniscope today, director of 3 Doctor Who stories, Lie of the Land, Empress of Mars, A Resolution, and a couple of episodes of Class, which I do believe we actually touch on in this thing that we recorded a couple weeks ago. That's on the podcast. It's the last Miniscope of probably the calendar year because we have other stuff coming this Tuesday. In fact, we'll announce the Series 12 Doctor Who commentaries that we're going to be doing coming up later this year.
Didn't you just kind of announce them just now?
I did, but the people who are on it and stuff like that, So,
oh, I see.
Yeah, we sort of been hinted. We do them. We do the. It's a surprise. I know.
It's not a surprise.
Yeah. So that's coming on Tuesday. So check the social media feeds, y'all. I never like to say y'all.
No, I don't either because we're Canadian.
We are Canadian. It sounds weird. Like even as
like
a
I get
joke.
why it's used as a catch-all phrase in America, and
Yeah.
it makes sense. But it seems like we're trying to, especially since we're all from Alberta in one form or another. It feels like we're trying to be cowboys, which no.
Well, unless you're from Calgary, in which case you are trying to be cowboys when it's convenient for you. Yeah, that's right, Calgary. I'm picking a fight with you. Even Warren's joining in on that fight.
Oh hell yeah!
Yeah.
Why would I ever defend Calgary?
Yeah.
You can't pick on Calgary too much because Naheed Nenshi is still the mayor, and
He
he's
is great.
such a nerd and such a geek.
He's
and he's a Doctor Who fan, so we got to cut them at least some slack.
That's true.
When they vote in some football hero, your goose is
I know.
Well, that only happens at the provincial level. Come on.
Yeah.
That's true. And actually, our football hero wasn't too bad a premier. Peter Lougheed, for those counting.
Peter
other than
Lougheed
Don
was
Getty, who
Don Getty was a football
not
hero.
so good.
Both of them were.
I didn't know Peter Lougheed. Alberta politics,
sure
everyone. Alberta politics from the 1970s.
Pretty sure Lougheed played for the Eskimos.
I think you're right. Yeah.
Did he really? Mm-hmm. So we just, and which of course is no longer the name of the team, which indicates how far we've come.
Yeah, sorry about that, everybody.
Yeah.
Further name dropping, my parents were friends with him. He was a nice guy, they said. I never met him.
Really? Golly, this is the most Albertan we've gotten this early.
Forget Albertan.
Peter Lougheed played.
Let's all have a steak.
Yeah.
Peter Lougheed played for the Eskimos for 2 seasons, 1949 and 1950.
Oh,
and
wow.
Then he went and became a lawyer in Calgary.
Oh. Well, but I know his successor Don Getty played for.
And you know why? Because the CFL don't pay worth a damn.
That's. Oh yeah, I know. It's pretty
Yeah,
much
they
minor
don't.
league football.
They really don't. I'm always amazed that the CFL like even exists.
Wow.
And they can actually get players.
Well, they don't
to
this
field
year.
Teams. Well,
they couldn't get a handout.
But in general, because I know a few years ago, I don't know, maybe a decade or something ago, it was announced that like the league minimum was something like $35,000.
Uh-huh.
Whereas like the NFL league minimum is some astronomical amount way beyond that. But
Yeah, for the amount of physical abuse you have to endure, 35 grand.
that's exactly it. How many people are having their lives, their physical health, their futures ruined by like, a bad tackle or something like that for 35 grand a year? Like,
I know.
wow.
Although I wonder if, I don't know enough about football to tell you if our rules are more gentle than the NFL rules.
No, not really. I mean, obviously they're doing it for the
field.
they're doing it for the
Longer
love of the game, I'm sure. But nevertheless, like that does not pay to be a CFL player.
I just want
Here's my last piece of sport. Where is
All
this
right.
coming from? Sports trivia.
okay, go
The
on.
Rock played for the CFL.
He did. Yeah, Dwayne Johnson played in the
Yep.
CFL for the Calgary Stampeders. I just
Stampeders.
want to point out, everyone, that before pressing record on this podcast today, both Chris and Warren were unanimous in their agreement. They've only agreed on 4 things over the course of the last 15 years. And they said no faff. And then we just had unbidden.
We did.
But I did not enter into this. A 5-minute.
faff, no less.
Yeah, Warren entered into a talk about the CFL, the Canadian Football League.
Okay, my last thing about CFL. The CFL is so small and obscure and uncared about, even in Canada,
All right.
that it enters the realm of things nerdy because of that.
Kind of. I remember watching. I can't remember what it was called, but CNN's like daily sports wrap up show thing. Like used to air like 9 p.m. our time or something like that.
All right.
I always remember because I used to watch it religiously, like when Hannah Storm started there and whatever. But anyway, when the Grey Cup would air, when the Grey Cup would be played, I always would watch the CNN thing just to see if they even mentioned the existence, and they usually did.
Did they? Okay.
I will say this, but let's just keep going. Let's just keep doing this.
Yes. Yes, let's do this.
The Grey Cup game has often been a Chicago TARDIS tradition because it often fell on Chicago TARDIS weekend. So on the
Did
Sunday
you get Americans
night,
to watch it with you?
oh yeah, because it's on ESPN2. It's been on ESPN2 for years, and the Sunday nights at Chicago TARDIS are not like the Sunday nights at Gallifrey 1, we'll say. And so a lot of people have started driving home because it's more of a local convention. And so we would just sort of like throw on the Grey Cup game on the hotel TV in our room on a Sunday night in suburban Chicago and watched. So it's been years since I've seen the Grey Cup in Canada. It's always been in the States for me to watch that thing. Yeah.
So
Not as exciting as the Olympic gold medal game at
My final
2010 Gallifrey.
Not at all. No. All
my
right.
final question about the CFL: Are
right.
the Americans underwhelmed by how little pomp and circumstance we have involved in the CFL?
I
think it's still mostly Americans that make up the players.
There is a Canadian quotient that they have to fulfill.
Still?
Oh yeah.
And even CanCon rules got like mostly dissolved for like radio play.
Oh yeah, no. There's still like there's still a racial quotient, roster quotient is what I meant to say.
Good God, yeah! Don't say racial quotient.
No, ratio.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay, thank God. I thought you made a serious faux pas.
No. CFL, 9 teams, should be 10. Only one of them's called the Rough Riders, which is a shame. I think Now, yeah, because the Ottawa Red Blacks, when they came back into the league, the person who held on to the original name, Rough Riders, which is 2 words, did not allow for that name to be used. Perhaps sparing the league embarrassment. I say no. I think this is a testament to this country in that the country was so large that they had 2 teams that had the same name and just didn't realize it or something, or I don't know what it was.
Well,
they
realized it. They did realize it.
They did, but like when
they're printing schedules and
I know, but when
marketing materials.
When they started, it's like, oh, you're called the Rough Riders. Oh, like it's almost like just it's a sign of the compromise of good Canadians, where it's like, oh, you change your name, you change your name. You know what? Let's just have the same name.
I just had a vision of them looking at the schedule every year, looking and saying Rough Riders, and then Tristram Carey music comes in. They're like, Rough Riders, and they just forget.
Or DMX music for that matter.
Mm-hmm.
But one was the Rough Riders, one was the Rough Riders.
Yes,
like
exactly.
One was 2 words, one was 1 word.
Yeah, Saskatchewan's 1 word because Saskatchewan doesn't know how to put spaces between words. Yeah, we're throwing bombs at everyone in the prairies today.
Annoying fans too, because everybody in Saskatchewan doesn't live in Saskatchewan, so they all come to the games.
Oh my God, do they ever wearing watermelons on their heads?
Saskatchewan Rough Riders fans are probably the most devoted of any
they are.
league.
And I live a block from the stadium they play at, so the BC team plays at. So I see a sea of green.
Yeah, the stadium, which has been like literally every science research establishment or
Star
something.
Labs and the Flash, I believe.
Yep, in every single CW and Warner Brothers show, because everything's shot in Vancouver. And
I've watched things being filmed at BC Place for the Flash.
I've walked past annoyed at things being
They did. I don't think you can see BC Place in the Doctor Who TV movie. That's the one location that you can.
Well, it doesn't have the spikes at that time either.
No, it just had the Metrodome kind of inflatable.
But I'll tell you, just to bring it back to Canada and more faff, it is in the premiere of Constable, the spin-off from the Beachcombers, where there's a climactic battle on top of the then new BC Place.
Really? They went on top of that roof?
Whatever that was.
The roof that collapsed? Wow, that's insane. Oh, wow.
Well, it had just been done at the time.
Yeah, it was brand new. You could just jump around on an inflatable roof, and I was like, this is fun. Yeah. Folks, I don't know what's going on.
Mad.
Yeah, I think so. So to recap, our premiers have past premiers have played in the CFL. The CFL has 9 teams. It used to have more teams in the States.
15 minutes.
It used to have lots of teams in the
hell have we
States.
done?
Yeah, the Memphis Mad Dogs, the Birmingham Barracudas, the San Antonio Texans.
Something Miners?
Sacramento Gold Miners are the first American expansion team.
I want to see which people have shut this off by now.
I don't know.
Everybody. We're talking to ourselves and nobody else at this stage. Even the people who just put us on in the background and don't even listen in the first place, they've already shut off.
Well, this is education, folks, okay? We bring a little bit of Canada each week on this podcast, just so the longest running Doctor Who mostly. There's the longest running Doctor Who podcast started like about a couple months before us, and they're from Germany. So,
but are they still running?
They're still running. Yeah, they haven't had as many episodes. Like they've had sensibility and think, let's press pause. Maybe we don't need to talk for 15 minutes about the Canadian Football League at the start of an episode.
Maybe they do. German Football League.
Maybe they do.
Maybe they do. I haven't listened. Don't speak German. There's listen, we're at a bit of a quiet time for at least public Doctor Who news. Maybe
Hence the last 15 minutes.
Yeah, maybe they're starting to shoot. Maybe they are planning on shooting. At the Radio Times has speculated they're about to start shooting Doctor Who in October or November. So stand by for action. Whether or not that means Doctor Who comes back in 2021 or early 2022, I'm thinking that, I don't know, they seem to like the New Year's Day kind of thing.
I'm hopeful that if things have to be delayed because of how they have to, rejigger shooting and blocking and all that.
Right.
I would hope that maybe we get like the series premiere like New Year's Eve 2021, something like that. So at least we can say we've had an episode in 2021, like we had Resolution on New Year's Day 2019,
Wow.
or was it Mysterio or Husbands of River Song, whichever one that was the only one for 2016.
Yeah. It almost makes you think that maybe they'll do Revolution of the Daleks on January 1st, 2021. Maybe. Just so
I guess that would still satisfy the 2021
Yeah.
episode thing. Yeah.
Would it satisfy it, though? Would it?
Well, no, like insofar as like something airs in 2021, even if nothing else does. Yeah.
I know what you mean. Maybe we'll find out more about this. Probably not, because they haven't advertised it as such. But the New York Comic Con / MCM Comic Con, which is the big London one, they've teamed up in this giant metaverse online convention happening October 8th through 11th. But there's 3 Doctor Who panels.
I like how you say metaverse, and it's going to be shots of people's houses.
Exactly, like everyone's living rooms and stuff. Which figurines they have in their background potentially. But Bradley Walsh has been added to the Doctor Who one. So it's surprised he's rarely done any of these. Like whenever it's been like a press tour, it's been Jodie, Whittaker, Mandip, Gill, Tosin Cole, but no Bradley Walsh usually, maybe because he's been busy filming his other commitments. But he's going to be on the Doctor Who one on October 8th. The official Doctor Who
moderated
spotlight.
by Melanie McFarland from Salon.com.
That's right. And that's mostly looking back at the last 2 seasons, essentially. So memories and anecdotes, and nothing about the next season of Doctor Who. I bet you they probably will be. Maybe.
You think there's going to be a trailer?
Oh, God, no.
Animated trailer. No.
I don't think there will be a trailer. I wish there was a trailer. But I don't know. They don't seem to be hyping it up. Although, why would you hype it up now when it's like, 3 weeks away,
Yeah, or not to mention the broadcast itself maybe, it's more than 3 months away.
Yeah.
Still.
Exactly. So maybe they don't have it. But there's also a Time Lord Victorious panel as well on the 10th of October with Joe Sugg, Nicholas Briggs, and Ayesha Antoine talking about the Daleks.
Goss.
Well, they explain what it is.
Yeah. Well, it's mostly focusing on the new animated series, Daleks, that's coming out in November on the Doctor Who YouTube channel. And then there's Doctor Who games, the Maze Theory exclusive panel about the Doctor Who adventure games and stuff, and probably all the games, the Doctor Who games and stuff. They're there. So all sorts of Doctor Who content at the Metaverse living room Doctor Who convention happening.
I hope they say it like that. Metaverse.
Yeah, you probably do. Speaking of Daleks, I guess that's my segue for this one. Dalek Universe is coming in April 2021. A full series of David Tennant Doctor Who audios coming. Because this, he's been in these little 3-episode box sets here and there since he started doing Big Finish. But this is the actual first proper season, so to speak, of David Tennant's Doctor Who in 10 years, of course, since he left the show on television. So yeah, that's coming out April 2021. You can pre-order now though. So
I'm gonna add some more faff here.
Right.
Just to briefly talk about David Tennant. This past week, Des, the ITV 3-part miniseries about Dennis. What's the last name? Anyway, serial killer in Britain. Mm-hmm. David Tennant does such an amazing job in that.
As a serial killer.
Yeah.
Ooh.
It's highly recommended watching for if you can muster the 2.25 hours for it.
Wow. I imagine that's got to be somewhere. Like if it's an ITV thing, maybe it'll show up on BritBox in North America or something like that. Maybe. Who knows?
Probably, yeah. Given ITV is 90% owners of BritBox or whatever it is.
Are they that much? I didn't realize
I think
that.
it's something like that.
Huh.
Yeah, and I wouldn't be surprised if BritBox had it. But for those who can access it, I guess ITV's catch-up service on the web. But no, it's really good stuff. Daniel Mays is also in it. And
from Night Terrors, Daniel Mays.
From Night Terrors, Doctor, or from Ashes to Ashes, if you will.
Sure.
He does an amazing job as well. Like it's really good. The only problem is it's set in the early 80s, and so every 5 seconds somebody lights up a cigarette, and it really makes you want to smoke.
Maybe it does for you.
Yeah, it doesn't really. I don't have that problem.
Yeah. Don't usually have that temptation, to be fair. Don't watch, actually do watch Good Night and Good Luck because it's a great movie, but everyone smokes in that because it's set in the 1950s. But
yes, it is a very cancerous film.
Yeah.
Or just like Life on Mars, Ashes to Ashes,
Anything set.
Anything from
Bandersnatch.
pre-1990.
Yeah. The Mind of Evil, for God's sake. There's a master smoking a cigar in that.
Resurrection of the Daleks.
Yeah. Yes, that's right. Those soldiers are smoking in like the 22nd century.
Like,
what are you doing?
Looks weird.
What are you doing? You're smoking on the bridge. It's a spaceship, for God's sake.
On the other hand, that spaceship is supposed to be a dump, which it never really looks like. It looks like a spaceship.
Who
so I'm like,
put
oh, cool.
that in? Who put that? Was that written in? Like, did Eric say where it's like, say, commander of space station is lights up, sparks one up on the bridge when she's...
Well, he always seemed to want to be making a gritty crime drama in space.
I think so, yeah. Was it him or was it like Matthew Robinson, the director? You know what? I think you should smoke during this one. Go for it. Smoke them if you got them. Doctor Who magazine came out this past week. So earlier they had a Doctor Who magazine diorama of the season 14 box set to sort of coincide with the release of the season 14 Blu-ray, which is great, by the way. Now they have a Chris Eccleston / David Tennant diorama TARDIS. You could build your own TARDIS. Comes in it in the paper version, obviously. You could print it out. You could print out your PDF of the digital version or whatever it is, whatever file format it is, and mold it into something there if you really wanted to. But Doctor Who set diorama is kind of cool. So that's all that and much, much more, including a deep dive into the days of the New Adventures, like the early 90s and stuff, with archive photos of like a young Paul Cornell reading a cover but no book inside to I remember that in Doctor Who magazine. All the authors are like saying, "Yes, I'm reading this book that I'm reading," but you can quite clearly tell that they're just holding a piece of cardboard that has a cover on it. But all neat stuff in the
a good metaphor for Doctor Who, really. Here's a piece of cardboard.
At the time, in a way, you're thinking, I am reading this because I am about to fill the pages with words, and indeed the pages, because in those days.
I just meant most things on Doctor Who were made of cardboard at the time. So
also true, yeah. And some Doctor Who we don't dive too deeply into these. We should, because they're really cool. The Doctor Who figurine collection, of which there have been like 181 now, but they're so cool, and they never really show up in the UK and in North America. But I remember seeing them in Forbidden Planet when I was there in London last, and they're really neat to see all these little mini Doctor Who figurines. But some recent ones include the Doctor Who Rare Dalek 16, the Electrode one from what? That's got to be Dalek Chase. Oh God,
it says right on the box there. The Chase.
It does.
The never-ending mine of obscure nonsense is the Chase.
That's cool. As soon
as I like how as soon as the words "the Chase" got mentioned, your enthusiasm fell 12 levels.
Did kind of fall.
Well, that's not very good. So there's that.
No, but the figurine's awesome. Because it doesn't have the smugness of the Chase in it. That's the great thing about it. Also, this is cool. There's alien ambassadors from the Ambassadors of Death, one of the great Doctor Who stories of all time. So that comes there. That's out. That's number 181, and number 180 is the Tux version of the 13th Doctor from Spyfall. So until Character Options puts out a Tux version, they should do it. This is your best.
I know. I think we've talked about this before, but can we try petitioning Eaglemoss or somebody just to make a whole range of like Cyril Shapps figures or John Abineri figures?
You know what? Yeah,
definitely try.
I think we hooked our cart to the horse that is Character Options, and I feel like there's a lot more involved when it comes to like pumping out action figures there. But I feel based on their previous output that Eaglemoss is the way to go. So I think there should be
Maddock box set?
There should be a Philip Maddock box set, a Cyril Shapps box set, a John Abineri box set,
with special consultation by Toby Haydock and a figurine of Toby Haydock in the bonus box.
I think that would be excellent, actually.
What's his face?
As the bartender in Adventure Space.
Yes.
Peter Halliday, maybe? He did several.
He did mostly voices, though, so maybe it would just be Peter Halliday with different mics over the years, like him. That could be.
But then you have like the Dalek voice, like Peter Hawkins with various mics over the years.
That's true, yeah. Although I think he probably used the same ring modulator, throughout his time on Doctor Who. Anyway, Eaglemoss figurines. We've given you a lot of press Eaglemoss, so there you go. Cyril Shap's box set awaits.
I do a webcomic, just letting you know, Eaglemoss.
Yep, does. That's it for the news. Now it's time to talk about Wayne Yip in the Miniscope.
Could be a theme park from the future. Or it might be inside a Miniscope.
Oh, shut up.
A Miniscope, yes, of course, why not?
Yes, Wayne Yip. Wayne Yip, who has been interviewed on this podcast 3 times. We could do a Miniscope on Wayne Yip interviews.
Yeah. And then the Gallifrey one, Cafe Clutch, I went to with him last year.
That's right. Mm-hmm.
Which was a lot of fun.
We've talked to him a lot. Well, Warren, I'm not even sure. Have you met him? I mean, I know that
I've walked past him. I don't think I met him. I saw he was very well dressed.
Yeah, he's very
very stylish individual, that man.
Yeah. Nice glasses and stuff. Directed 3 episodes of
Maybe
Doctor
I met him.
Who.
It was very brief if I did.
Drank a lot of kombucha.
Did he?
I saw.
Oh, apparently it's healthy. The Lie of the Land, Empress of Mars, and Resolution, the only episode to air in 2019. Thus, giving him license to be in the Miniscope. If you were counting spin-offs, which we kind of do because John Black is in the Miniscope because he directed K9 and Company to go along with his 2 Doctor Who stories. Wayne Yip got his start in class. Got his start in the Doctor Who universe with Detained and the Metaphysical Engine, or What Quill Did. One of us is so enthusiastic about Wayne Yip's direction on his style that person went back and actually watched the episodes of Class, even though that person was not required. What, you watched half of them, or like closed one eye and watched them? Or
no, they were playing while I was playing Animal Crossing.
Okay. Hashtag 2020. But I mean, we were, because that actually, it's important to bring that up because back in the day.
Back in the day, I'm totally going to cut you off here. Back in the day, for episode 6, the detention episode. Yep. There's a shot where the camera's like outside the set, the building, the whatever, and there's the meteorite rock thing that makes him tell the truth, etc. But there's a shot where the rock gets knocked out of, and I forgot all the character names. So I'm just
It's been a couple years. It's been a few years.
4
years.
I've forgotten a lot about that series.
It's Class.
Anyway, there's a scene where the rock is knocked out of somebody's hand, and they're falling backwards, and they're getting caught. Ram is catching April, and it's just done in slow-mo from a big distance, and it just looked frickin' beautiful. Mm-hmm. And when I saw that again last night, I mean, it still is so impactful. And the only reason I watched Class is because I watched all the Wayne Yip stuff like a week ago because we were supposed to record it, or I thought we were supposed to record it, and then we pushed it back. And I'm like, okay, I've got some time to kill. I'm going to watch the Class ones. So I did.
I see. Well, that's all right. You don't need to explain your...
I wasn't going to watch them if there wasn't that delay.
Well, it was because of that. I remember we tweeted about it, like, wow, this is a really cool directorial stuff that we saw. And we tagged him on Twitter back when he was on Twitter. Mm-hmm. And then we get a DM because I think we spoke about his stuff on the podcast that day when we were reviewing Class. And he
we singled him out as being phenomenal.
Yeah. And he gave us like some inside info and stuff about what happened. Like, so, thanks for the kind words. Here's what happened with this and this and this and this. And oh, that was kind of neat. And then obviously, once a director DMs you, once a director slides into your DMs, you think, well, here's a podcast opportunity, and which it was. And then we interviewed him once, and then we interviewed him again after Resolution, and then I talked to him again very briefly at Gallifrey 1 when he was sitting at an autograph table with Jamie Child. So Wayne Yip has crossed paths with us a few times, and he has given us a lot of his time. The first interview I did with him, literally we talked for 3 hours, 1 hour and one half of which was recorded, and then we just sort of chatted a lot before and after. A really fine guy, a really fine director.
Yeah, he's also done some other stuff, like some other genre or near genre stuff, like. He did some Secret Diary of a Call Girl back in the day, so Billy Piper's in that. Did some Misfits, Utopia, Doom. He's doing Doom Patrol, which is shot in, somewhere in the States. Like, it's not one of the Vancouver.
No,
probably Atlanta, because Atlanta gets a lot of tax. I have nothing.
Atlanta, it might have been New Orleans. I know he was in New Orleans for a while shooting something.
Could be. I know Black Lightning shoots in Atlanta.
Well, there's a lot of tax credits there. That's why all the Marvel movies are there, because Atlanta goes, you want to shoot this thing basically for free? You go right ahead.
Yeah. He also did, I didn't know this, he did 2 episodes of the Amazon Prime series Hunters, which co-stars Greg Austin, who was in class with him. So that I found interesting too. Yeah. He's done a lot of work on both sides of the Atlantic, kind of like another favorite director of ours, Rachel Talalay. But it seems predominantly that he's in North America now, but well,
that's where the cash is. So yeah,
it is where the cash is, and I hope that, I haven't seen much else apart from his Doctor Who stuff, but I hope that he is getting the same creative control, or at least a healthy amount of creative control, because we've referenced this a lot in the past about how Rachel Talalay comes to England, makes less money, but is involved in the project from beginning to end, whereas she's more or less a gatherer of footage for shows in the US, and it's up to the editing suite to craft it into a 42.5-minute episode. So given a lot of stuff that Yip is working on is mostly like for streaming and stuff, I hope that he's enjoying himself and that he has a good time working in North America, because we enjoyed his stuff in the UK, that being Doctor Who. So based on the class stuff, he was invited to record a block of episodes for Series 10 of Doctor Who, Peter Capaldi's final year in the Doctor Who. And The Lie of the Land was the first one. Controversial episode, perhaps, by people that might not enjoy it. Did we talk about this on the Toby Whithouse Miniscope?
That's saying, you can say that for anything.
That's true. It's the Monk trilogy. It's the Monk trilogy. Is it?
There was
Monk trilogy is a thing.
Yeah.
There was a thing recently. So, Forbidden Planet had its 42nd anniversary, and there's a streaming event and this and that. And Stephen Moffat and Mark Gatiss were interviewed for it, and Moffat was recollecting his early memories of Forbidden Planet as a store, where because he overheard a couple of people talking about the Two Doctors as it was being recorded, and talking about like Fraser Hines' screen time and this and that, as well as the fact Forbidden Planet carried fanzines, which within the pages within carried a lot of vitriol about Doctor Who.
I'm shocked.
He was convinced that Forbidden Planet was the place where you wanted to go if you wanted to complain about Doctor Who.
Now
that's the internet now.
Now that place is Twitter. Yes, it's Twitter actually is where you go, or YouTube. Actually, YouTube is where you go to complain about Doctor Who.
Oh God!
Based on all the
there's a lot of YouTube stuff out there like that. Yes, but at any rate, yes. Lie of the Land is. I think you need to expand that more to like just the Monks trilogy in general. That
none of which is Wayne Yip's fault.
No. But it didn't sit overly well. But Lie of the Land, I enjoy. I'm more okay with the Monks trilogy than you are, Stephen, for example.
You know what? I think it actually gets progressively better in retrospect.
I agree. It does.
Does that include Extremis?
It does include Extremis. Which still does not sit well with me. I know we've watched. I think we've more or less watched all 3 of those episodes recently for podcast purposes. Like the Daniel Nettheim Miniscope happened, and he directed Extremis, and Peter Harness wrote Pyramid of the End of the World, of course, which I think is better. The script that Wayne Yip initially got for Lie of the Land was a very different script, and by the time it actually came to a finalized version, it was a much different story, and so the monks were entirely different. But it. You know what? Watching it now, it aired in 2017, it was shot in 2016, and it was like, added elements of what had happened in November of 2016. And it's amazing how that episode actually has become a lot more relevant now. It's just with the lies and the propaganda and just sort of like the brainwashing and everything that's going on. It just feels like we're kind of living through that a lot more now than we were in 2017.
It literally involves a scene with the doctor saying fake news.
It does, yeah.
Yeah, so who is the doctor in this scenario? Tucker Carlson? I really hope not.
No. But we're focusing on the visual and the directorial aspect, and there are 2 or 3 fantastic scenes in The Lie of the Land. I think all 3 of us watched all 3 episodes. Chris, you have spoken highly of Wayne Yip's work in the past, so I'm going to throw it to Warren first and say, Warren, what's stuck out for you for Wayne Yip's direction in Lie of the Land?
Well, just to presumably steal Chris's thunder, is I think the standout the whole thing is the stuff where they're wearing the Walkmans and it's all kind of
which is nothing to
done
do
in
with
voiceovers. What's that? No, but the pacing of it is,
Yeah.
and the movement of the camera and all, which all adds to the stuff over the Walkmans, and
I'm sure
also
the
as a
editing as
director,
well. Yeah.
Exactly, he's going to be supervising the sound editing and all that stuff. They're not doing that in a vacuum, so that sequence in and of itself works really, really well, and it's different than what they usually did. And it's in fact, up until Spyfall, they've really never done any of this really spy kind of stuff. This is as close as you're going to get to like a, I hate to use the words Michael Bay, but a Michael Bay type sequence in Doctor Who, which is interestingly done. It's almost, the monks are almost secondary to the whole thing. Like whenever they show up in their robes, you're like, what are these guys doing here again? Like, what is this for? I'm supposed to be watching an action film. Also, he does claustrophobia, and this applies to all 3 of these stories quite well. Like I found this one in particular to be quite claustrophobic, and there's just a lot of shooting of close-ups, and he does the close-ups really quite well, and those are easy to screw up. So I thought that really worked as well.
Yeah, I thought actually I was listening. I didn't listen to all of his interviews on RFS, but I was listening to how like when he started to do Detained, which of course is the class episode which takes place all in one classroom. And initially we got the script, was thinking, can we maybe have this in like the hall of the school, with like a bigger room with like, so he was kind of like pushing against the claustrophobia before Patrick Ness sort of told him, we kind of want it claustrophobic. That's the whole point of the episode. And he sort of came around to that. So it's interesting that like his first instinct for class was to not be as claustrophobic, and now of course like the claustrophobia is sort of part of it. Even
in the class episode, the classroom they're in, like gets thrashed by the meteor's appearance. So like lights fall down from the ceiling, and there's like rubble and things caving in and stuff. So it's even smaller.
Yeah, absolutely. Was there anything else you want to talk about Lie of the Land before Chris takes over, Warren?
Well, the fake news part of it was interesting. I also found that there's, and this might not be up to him, but there's a lot of sort of jamming in of little frames of stuff to get more info in, like the whole thing with the truth, and just the way they imply that people are being brainwashed through that is also done later on in other stories. And it works, I think, to more or less an extent. It's kind of shorthand, but it's interesting that they throw that in, because I don't see that all that much in other stories. And he seems to do that a fair bit, of the little flash frame of a logo or symbol,
the
or
truth of the monk, like sort of,
exactly.
It's great
just to get the point across.
It is great shorthand, isn't it? But like that's the thing that sort of like snaps Bill back into, the monks, like that sort of thing. Like it's always sort of there. I like it. I like it because it's not like a flash frame. Like it doesn't take over the screen completely. It's like dissolved in. It's kind of like like it's just there.
And that's more editing, but it's easy to screw that up too. Like it's if it just feels jammed in unless you do it right, and I think they do it right in this one.
Mm-hmm. I agree. The part that I love, before I hand the floor over to Chris, is the big scene. The one that kind of gets a little bit controversial too, because it's like everyone's in on the gag and they're laughing at Bill afterwards. But just the acting from Pearl Mackie in that scene, and you.
Oh yeah, she's great.
You watch that, and I think it might have been shot with 2 cameras as well. One on Capaldi, and then one basically just
so
following.
Keep up the energy.
Pearl Mackie on, there is a genuine energy there. It's almost kind of like multicam. And I remember him saying like that or maybe it was Douglas McKinnon actually who said in an interview with us or a commentary that shooting with 2 cameras is actually a lot more common than we think. Just sort of to get reaction shots, which I find,
especially with TV, because you got to get the stuff done quick.
Well, you got to get stuff done but quick, but there's also like, oh man, I think I can't remember if I mentioned this in the podcast, but just watching the extras on the Thick of It box set from season 1, and they broke down how they shot a scene, and they had 2 cameras, but like they're roving around is the thing. Like one camera stays on the action, the one guy goes into the closet, followed by Peter Capaldi at a later point, and that camera goes on there. And I didn't realize, like, I thought they were just sort of editing back and forth between different takes. No, it's happening at the same time. 2 cameras in 2 entirely different rooms, but they're both capturing the performances. And you know,
that's on. Sorry, go ahead.
It's fascinating that they're still kind of like doing that now, not in a multicam situation, but just to get coverage, because it's easier to get coverage of someone at the same time as you're getting the performance of one other person. Otherwise, you know, you have to sort of have that other actor give the same kind of performance, knowing that that person's not going to be on camera. So, you know, that person probably won't give the same kind of performance. So it's a lot easier for the other actor to react to the actual performance
that comes down
being
to
given.
It's also a lighting thing too, right? It's like it's because the way lighting is a little easier now, or a little more modular, or a little more modifiable. You can do that to an extent you couldn't do before. That's a lot of shows that have the fake reality version, you know, like The Office, or to a certain extent Brooklyn Nine-Nine. A lot of those cameramen know when to zoom in for the joke. You know what I mean? That's not after the fact. That's a cameraman knowing how to act with the camera. So there's a little bit of that too.
On the flip side, it also involves extra work with blocking and this and that, so you don't get one cameraman shooting another.
Yeah. Oh, I saw a we're just sort of talking about direction in general right now, but I watched a 2.5-minute clip of them behind the scenes shot of them shooting a scene from Peep Show, and it was amazing. It was amazing because there's the camera. The camera's walking up. For those that haven't watched, I have only seen one episode, but I know the gist of it. It's basically all first person. It's a little bit kind of like a first person shooter. I have a hard time watching it actually, but basically it's the thoughts of whoever's, you know, you've seen it, Chris, right? You know what I'm talking about.
I watched the whole series.
You've watched the whole series, and basically there's the one camera pointing at everyone, and everyone's speaking directly to the camera because that's how the show is sort of shot. And what's the name of the 2 stars?
David Mitchell and Robert Webb.
David Mitchell's walking around saying his lines near the microphone, which is being held, and then he'll stand behind the camera person and reach across and hand the person in front of the camera something, as because he's actually speaking. And there was this magical ballet for 3 minutes of them walking around this restaurant set. It was just oh God, it's just fascinating. I am fascinated by directorial production and TV production and stuff like that.
Apparently they were very strict from that's at the first 2 seasons, trying to keep it to the point of view thing. And then they started cheating. They're like, okay, we can't possibly continue like this.
But I mean, so the scene where, you know, Pearl Mack is giving that an amazing performance, which is sort of going through all these emotions of the fact that the Doctor has betrayed her, and you could tell that is a take. That is one take going on right now. Even though they're cutting back to Peter Capaldi later on in editing, you could tell just by where the camera is and where her emotional level is at that point. You are watching a single take for performance, and that is, you know, as much as we talk about angles and lighting and stuff like that, just capturing performances is really what the director is number one job is, really, and he did such a fascinating job at that
as well.
Yeah, exactly. Anyway, Chris, Lie of the Land, your thoughts?
My predominant thing was Pearl Mackie. That was my biggest takeaway from watching it this time around, especially the sequence with her confronting the Doctor. But even beyond that, just the it's even earlier on in the episode where she's having the, you know, coffee, tea, whatever with her mother, or her imaginary mother, just her weariness and her honesty that she puts through Bill, just it really helps to steal the show. She was best thing about that episode, I think, quite possibly.
She's a fabulous actor, just a fabulous actor.
Well, she just nails it in every aspect. But yeah, the attack sequence with the Walkmans and whatnot, as we heard from Yip himself, that was all scripted. Yes, Warren, he would have had his own input into it as far as editing and pacing and whatnot, but that was still all scripted. So alas, we cannot attribute it entirely to him, even though
but the way it's portrayed phenomenal. Is up to him.
Oh yeah. But it's it's a beautiful sequence. And even beyond that, there were a couple other shots. I didn't make all that many notes for this one, but a couple of shots I did call out was at the end of the cold open where the doctor's doing his voiceover, and then eventually cuts to him on the screen. There's just a really like creepy, like low angle shot that they use of Capaldi, and it just it's really effective because I mean the whole premise or the whole setup is that he's working for the monks and he can no longer be trusted and all that. So it just puts you on edge. And then the other one was when the doctor is asking for Missy's help or for information from Missy about the monks. Is one bit where she's at the piano and he's just walking around the perimeter of her cell just over and over, and the camera's just following him, and it just looks like it really puts you at unease because that's exactly what the doctor is feeling at that point because he doesn't know what he's going to get from Missy. And then, of course, she says, oh, you just have to kill the person who said yes to the monks, which is Bill. So it really helped to sell the scene.
And that scene is like Wayne Yip told me that like all the little things that Michelle Gomez did, like mouthing 6 months to when during the conversation, her like crawling on top of the piano, all the bonker stuff is all Michelle Gomez.
Fabulous Baker Boys style.
Yeah, and that is another great thing about a director is allowing the space for an actor to sort of inhabit the role and make the scene. It's one thing to just sort of like sit back and let her go, but.
Yeah, I think day one, memo number one, or maybe memo number two, that any director, whoever directed that one, whether it's Yip or otherwise, would get is Michelle Gomez is a comedic genius. Let her do her thing and see how it goes.
Yeah.
I, in fact, texted last night, Stephen, and said, Dewan's great, don't get me wrong. Damn, Missy's great. Like, one of my favorite masters of all time. She's just so good. Gomez is just so good.
Yeah.
The master.
Yeah, she's like just like next level kooky. And
but also evil. She has malevolence to spare. That's what's great about her.
Yes. Yeah.
There are many facets of the master's performance, and as I told Warren, you don't need to rank everything.
Okay, I'm a Doctor Who fan, so clearly I do.
That's true. You do need to rank
things.
things.
Part of it as well is we've seen a lot more of Missy than we have of Dewan. So we're more familiar with what Gomez is doing than we are of Dewan.
That's true.
And I'm not calling out. I like Dewan's portrayal of the Master. I just really like hers a lot. So.
I adore his portrayal so much, especially in Spyfall Part 1, where like just watching his performance as he transitions from O to the Master.
That's great.
The progression that gets made throughout the episodes, it's a thing of beauty.
I'm not calling him out in any way. I'm just saying, find a way to team those two up. Come on.
That's a great thing about Doctor Who is that there's always things that you want more of, but you can always go back and watch again, like Michelle Gomez is missing.
Until very recently, we never had a multi-master episode, and then we got Gomez and Sim. So
True. So I might be asking for a little too much here.
I also like Capaldi, of course, because he's I think he's still my favorite Doctor Who, but I like all the Doctors Who, so it was fun watching them again, and just that team. I do wish we had one more year out of that team. I liked that TARDIS team, and I love the shot like after the conversation with Missy. Or is it Missy or wherever it was? So where the slow motion shot, basically, where Capaldi's sort of walking to the camera. Yes, that's right. And Michelle Gomez's final lines are taking place over that walk out. It's a very dramatic and cool looking shot, but it's also completing the conversation while transitioning to the next scene. And I love that. I love being able to sort of like economize a little bit. It's not like here's the scene, that conversation finishes, then we see them walking, then the next scene begins. No, the walk is part of it. Like it's almost like the last words of that conversation are in the Doctor's mind at that point. Like that is what is sort of like making him walk with such purpose to the next destination. I thought it was a very, very well shot scene from Wayne Yip as well.
Yeah. And even just some of the performances he gets out of the extras, like at the end of the scene where with the confrontation on the ship, the the one the one guard who would ask them for their papers, and he's like, yeah, I just felt like it should, just having a little fun kind of thing, and just the reaction that he gives and gets, and then the other guy with the beard, the other guard who
Dave,
the doctor says, we just loaded everything up with blanks, and the guard's like,
he just sort of looks sheepishly. No? Yeah. I think it's an episode that bears rewatching. I know that some people weren't happy with the Monks trilogy, and as I said at the beginning, maybe it gets better as it gets along. But yeah, I quite enjoyed the Land a lot more this time around. After 3 years distance from it, so give it another watch. Empress of Mars is the next episode, written by Mark Gatiss. So we've spoken about the writing aspect of this. Yeah. Ice Warriors, Mars, Victorian Gentlemen, all male characters. It's a Mark Gatiss, basically a template for a Mark Gatiss script. When you think
Hallmark,
about it. Hallmark in his swan song from Dr.
Hallmark Gatiss.
I get it.
I get it too. Don't like it though.
Yeah. So yes, it's more or less all inside in the caves on Mars and stuff. Yes. What are people's thoughts on Empress of Mars? Chris, I'll start with you.
I think in this case, one of the best things about it is Yip's direction.
Yeah.
I think that's just the story at the end of the day. Like, I don't dislike it. It's not ever going to be in my top 50 Doctor Who stories.
I was going to say 50. Yeah.
It's I think it's watchable. It's enjoyable for the most part. The anachronism of Victorian soldiers on Mars and the NASA thing and the ice caps and the God Save the Queen and all that kind of stuff. Like it's just really fun and silly and I can enjoy that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. But just the way a lot of the stuff was shot was like just really made it a lot of things sing. Like I can't remember Adele Lynch, as I look it up here, playing Araxa. Like she's chewing scenery in every shot she's in, and just like so over the top and wonderful and whatever. But just the way she's shot a lot of the time is in like super close up, and there's a lot of shots of like her face and teeth and makeup and helmet and stuff like that, and I just like that.
It's a remarkable amount of confidence in the costume department for saying, you better make it good, because we're not shooting this in the long shot. This is not the Zarbi or anything like that. All right, or the Menoptera from Web Planet. We are going right tight up there. So make your makeup good.
Although I wonder how much of that is purely practical, as in like, well, we can't shoot that much of the full body suit. It only looks so good and far away, and I don't know that for a fact, but you'd think that maybe they would spend all their time on that close up stuff.
And secondarily, things like close ups can also cover up problems if any existed. I'm not aware of any. I'm not saying there, but like let's say for example they have to do pickups and they don't have the set anymore. Cool, close up. Then you don't care about the rest of the stuff. Right.
It's easier for pickups. Yeah. But it might have been a lot of that. I mean, the thing, this is the interesting thing. I mean, this is something that Wayne Yip has told me, is that in the Moffat era, they would shoot everything in the script, even though they knew there would be it would be like 10 minutes overrunning. They'd shoot everything. Everything would be shot, even though so there's sometimes like, why are we shooting this? We know that this scene is kind of superfluous. It will be cut, but here we shoot it. So there's like a lot of stuff to be crammed in there. And maybe that's stuff that once you edit things out, you kind of need to okay, we need to shoot a really quick scene with just, just to sort of explain this one word to sort of get through this. Whereas the Chibnall era is like, they basically write about what they need. And that's it. Like, it's a much more economical writing system in the Chibnall era. I found that quite fascinating, because that could definitely affect what decisions you make when you're editing,
Well, yeah.
Or if you have decisions to make, or they're available to you, is what I mean.
Exactly. Yeah. Because I mean, just if you have extra stuff that you can treat as B-roll or something like that, and, cut away to that for different reactions or a different energy, whatever. If that doesn't exist because it was never written, never shot, then it's totally going to change your ability to do things.
But it also means you get a little more creative sometimes. If you can rely on that stuff, sometimes you go for the, not that I'm accusing the editors of anything, but sometimes not having that stuff available makes you more creative.
Yeah.
I was listening to the thing with the editors of The Mandalorian, and they were saying, because you can't see this guy talking, where there are a lot of times where we could sort of cut him out of one scene and put him in another because that head move sort of worked better, and we can just dub over what he's saying. So that was almost too much freedom in a way. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, that's damn fascinating. Yeah. So you could do any number of reshoots. You could have completely rewritten the script of an episode of The Mandalorian.
And they did. They added stuff. In fact, Deadpool's the same. They Ryan Reynolds said that we just kept making more and more and better jokes. We kind of shot what we had, and then because you can just dub over most of what he's saying because he's got a mask on. That's intentional. You can just amp up the jokes over and over and over, so it gets funnier and funnier, which I think he pulled off. So yeah, there are advantages and disadvantages to that. Yeah. But it depends on who's behind that costume. And with the Mandalorian, there's like 5 different people in that outfit. So
yeah.
Any impressive stuff jump out at you for
oh yeah,
Empress?
I got a few things on here.
Let's do this.
There were and I don't have any specific examples as such, but there were several instances where another director might cut from one thing to another, but chose to just pan the camera from one thing to another, giving a lot of things a whole different feel. There's a freneticism added with like a quick jerk of the camera from position A to position B, rather than just cutting from A to B.
I appreciate that. It gives a good geography of location, like where things are in the scene.
A spatial not awareness, but like just a sense of the space. And it's a shot that goes from practical to CG, of course, but the panning shot upward for all the Ice Warrior tombs,
right?
Starting at the ground and going up the hive kind of thing, just utterly gorgeous. Even though, yes, I know most of it's CG at the end of the day.
Well, whatever. They plan CG shots just as they do shots in the studio. So,
well, of course. There were during like the I guess massacre, whatever. The killing of the soldiers, the Victorian soldiers. There's a few times where the shadow of the soldier is shot rather than the soldier himself, which kind of accomplishes 2 big things. Number one, it's way cheaper because you don't have to generate the CG effect of the crumpling. And secondarily,
or throw these bouncy balls of things, because there were some practical effects on those weird, those weird Miralon infused balls of soldiers. Yeah, there's an episode title.
Infused balls of soldiers.
Miralon infused.
Miralon infused.
Miralon.
It also has a different effectiveness to it as well, because it's kind of scarier and creepier just to see the shadow, not the thing.
It's also like less graphic too, because you can really get away with a lot. Kind of like this Psycho. You see more of the shadow of Janet Leigh getting stabbed.
Or you don't see Janet Leigh getting stabbed. You see the blood running down the drain. Yeah.
That too. Yeah, you see the after effects or the shadow therein. Yeah. Yeah. I like the one shot of where they sort of like it's the one soldier as he's sort of like looking at all the golden stuff, and you could see that the Ice Queen is coming to life again, but it's happening in the background of the shot essentially as the camera sort of pushes down towards the guy. You can see that she's coming to life, but it's not the element of it. And then you see out of focus in the next shot behind her big clamp comes down and kills him.
Yeah.
Thought that was effective.
There were a lot of, again, no specific examples, but there were a lot of one shots where just people are just at like either side of the frame, not centered, which is something that I don't think is done enough. Like there's just too much focus on keeping somebody like in the center of the frame because they think that's the right thing to do, and sometimes it's not. And the last note I had was just. When they went into the TARDIS, Missy's reveal, just kind of like poking her head out from behind the time rotor to show that she's there. It's just so sheepish and coy.
Yeah. Warren, any thoughts on Empress of Mars?
Well, I mean, like a lot of Doctor Who, but this one especially, you can tell if you think about it that they didn't have a whole lot of money and they didn't have a whole lot to work with, but doesn't matter. It makes it look good regardless. Like you kind of forget that this is all more or less in one set, basically. But because it's shot the way it is, and because it's colorful, and he's very good at distracting you from the fact that this is being done on the cheap, basically.
Yeah,
which is I think standard issue for most Doctor Who directors, but I was impressed with how he was able to pull that off.
Either in studio, I can't remember if a lot of it was in studio. There was some in actual caves. I think it's probably the same caves where they shot like Christmas Invasion and probably 8 other Doctor Who episodes that take place in caves.
It's probably an offshoot of the Millennium Center.
Yeah, it's probably just under the. Yeah, they were going to actually place new walls and think, you know what, just leave the cave here. I think we're going to probably use this a lot because Doctor Who keeps shooting here. But yeah, all right. Well, if we're done with Empress of Mars, we can move on to the 2019 holiday special, being Resolution, the first special in the Chris Chibnall era, the first appearance of the Dalek. Singular, and even then, just sort of like a junkyard chic Dalek, in probably what was my favorite episode of Series 11, if we're counting that as part of Series 11, given the
it's definitely up there.
Yeah, it aired like less than a month after the actual proper series ended. Yeah, I quite enjoy Resolution a lot. I enjoyed watching it again. It really hums along. There's some great lines in there. There's some great shots. Yes, Resolution, Chris, you're going to say.
Oh, I was... the other day when I thought we were going to be recording this Miniscope, we were meant to record it after a regular RFS episode, and before we started recording that regular RFS episode, I had said to you guys how I just had watched Resolution the night before, and just how much I just adored Yip's work on it altogether, and was looking forward to just spewing praise. And that's
spew away, boys. Spew away.
That hasn't changed. That said, there are 3 stories we're covering, and Stephen, you haven't gone first yet, so I'd love to start with you and hear your thoughts on Resolution before either of us get underway.
Well, I like the one that stands out is the massacre of the army soldiers. It's one of my favorite shots in Doctor Who.
Some savagery.
That is just, oh my God.
It's the slow motion tracking shot that goes across. That is sort of like focused on action, basically the Dalek in the foreground. But as the camera is tracking from left to right, you can see all these explosions and soldiers flying off and like extermination effects happening like out of focus because it's not the focus of the scene. It's just such a magical shot. I adore that shot to pieces.
I will throw in all the overhead shots that are part of that sequence as well.
Yes,
just like this massacre going on, and you're viewing it from 200 feet in the air or whatever. Like I'm assuming I don't know if it was CG or if it was drone footage, whatever it was. Because I remember Yip saying that there was like some farmer's field. Because you had asked him, how the hell do you shoot something like that without getting seen?
Yeah.
It's a closed down road or something, yeah.
Well, no, I think he said it was like some farmer's field where there's like no roads for miles. Like no main roads for miles or something, so they could get away with it. But yeah, just like the overhead stuff. And there's a lot of, you say the slow-mo, there's a lot of the camera just going sweeping and panning and just hectic as the Dalek shoots all the soldiers, and it's even like the slow-mo shot of the tank shell and the Dalek rocket.
Yeah.
Just one careening off the other. So you got the tank shell going to hit nothing, and the Dalek rocket hitting the tank, and boom. And oh my God, that's just like, you could do a masterclass in action sequences with that.
Yeah, it's so good. I mean, it is kind of like playing on the the one Dalek wiping everyone out in Dalek and from 2005.
Yes.
Yeah, but jacked up a notch, I say.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. And I think stuff like that is like it looks beautiful and all that, but beyond that, I think it's also necessary from time to time, at any rate, just because the Daleks were always meant to be this phenomenal force. One Dalek could crush whatever. There's billions of Cybermen, but the 4 Cult of Skaro Daleks, they're the only thing that Cybermen are good at are dying.
Yeah.
Like all this stuff where the Daleks are supposed to be these like ultimate badasses, and we don't see that enough. This
is where it really comes back. Like
this helps to reinforce that theory, that facet of the Daleks.
Yeah, but it also, what I like is that it doesn't make them like sort of godlike. It does require Lynn as a host essentially to basically like get to some place to rummage up some materials so that it can make a casing again. I do like that it actually used. And that's
what's interesting about this one. Like it's its own beast, and it really works. And the back and forth between the Dalek and Lynn also could have gone sideways pretty badly, and it doesn't at all. It's actually terrifying. And Daleks haven't been terrifying for, like Chris said, a long time. And that tends to happen with most monsters, like Cybermen. Up until like this year, the Cybermen have kind of been sliding into a joke, and they are not a joke anymore, other than the flying heads.
Yeah. No, I think the Dalek mutant itself, like we haven't really seen that much since, but here and there, like the end of Dalek, for instance, and other things. But I love, that's another one of my favorite bits is when Lynn discovers that there's this Dalek attached to her back in her bedroom, and it's
bathroom.
Or bathroom it is, and like the way it's shot, it's like all these sort of like dissolving between 2 or 3 different shots at the same time. Yeah, that was really cool. Instead of like cutting back, because it just sort of like it was effective because it showed how in sync their minds were now. It wasn't like cutting to Lynn talking, cutting to the Dalek mutant talking, and back and forth and like that, because it wasn't like that. That wasn't the relationship that was happening now. That Dalek was basically in her mind, and that's how it was speaking to her. So it would have been pointless to give it a visual, to focus on the Dalek and give it its own scene. To actually dissolve it in just really enhance that point.
I always read that as not quite that, like kind of similar overall, but I've always read that differently, insofar as like all the camera just kind of going all wavy and the dissolves and the lens flares and all that kind of stuff. That was the Dalek taking Lynn over, and then when that all stops, that's when the Dalek is in control.
Oh yeah, I could. Oh yeah, that's true. Yeah, but I mean, the transition was happening basically, is what I.
Oh yeah, it was. Yeah. That was as I phrased it in my notes. That was the Dalek creature formalizing its takeover of Lynn. Yeah.
Yeah, it's. I mean, as much as I enjoy Resolution, apparently it went through a little bit of a thing. I remember Wayne Yip telling me that on day one they basically didn't have a script. They were waiting around for a script, and I think what I don't know where this came from. So take it with a grain of salt, but it sort of makes sense. But apparently, it was, instead of Lynn sort of being the one taken over, it was supposed to be Yaz who was initially taken over, but. That
would have added a whole different peril.
It would have added a whole different peril. But the Doctor Who crew was off in San Diego, and they had a pending date to actually plug the series. So a lot of that stuff, like for instance, when you are watching the police scene on that road, the road to nowhere, this road that they built, and then they stopped building it, and so a lot of Cardiff-based TV productions have used that road for road scenes. Like Casualty uses like every single episode apparently, because they don't need to worry about blocking off traffic. All that stuff was shot when the cast and crew, the main cast and crew, were off in San Diego. So in some ways, this is almost like a Dr. Light episode, because for a good week, there's no Doctor or companions involved in it. So I think that's why Charlotte has a larger role in it potentially, and I think that might have created some rewrites, and perhaps why Yaz has next to nothing to do, which is kind of par for the course for a lot of stuff in Series 11. She's basically wrangling people and talking to them on phones to bring them into the TARDIS. But originally she was, I think, going to have a much larger role. Perhaps that's why she was the police officer being taken over. That probably would have been Yaz at some point. So factor that into the fact that you sort of have to create tension and intensity in a Doctor Who episode that largely doesn't feature your main cast for the first 15 or 20 minutes of the episode. Essentially, it's all mostly on Lynn and Mitch and the Discovery and the 3 people around the world guarding elements of the Dalek and stuff. So yeah, I thought that was quite interesting. Anyway, your thoughts. I think I've spoken at some length about my thoughts about Resolution, how much I enjoyed it. Chris, Warren, what about you?
I would say the pacing is fantastic. Like, it really feels not just like it's a step up from the rest of Series 11, but it's like a step up from most Christmas specials. Not all, but most.
Yeah.
In that it's just action packed. Keeps going and going and going. And besides that, all the stuff with Ryan and his dad, which we've been building up to for the past year, really works, even though it's slow. Even though it's kind of like this anchor and everything else, it still works together, and it weaves together really nicely into the ending. And you don't get that without him directing it properly and pacing it properly.
Mm-hmm. I will speak more of that, but I want to have Chris have his say first.
Sure. First thing on my list is actually kind of related to that. In the in a scene before Aaron and Ryan go to the cafe, is so Tosin Cole and the actor who plays his dad, just like I said, earlier on, masterclass for action sequences for the Army versus Dalek thing. Mm-hmm. Masterclass in drama as far as like whole cafe sequence is concerned.
Oh yeah.
And as we talked about when we originally reviewed the episode, I think, actually I'm going to put that on the back burner. We'll talk about. I think that deserves its own section of discussion.
It does.
But before they go to the cafe, there's a scene with Graham talking to Aaron, and Graham's kind of just giving him the lay of the land kind of thing, and the camera's just doing this super slow push in on Graham, just getting ever so slightly closer as the sequence goes on, and just looks gorgeous.
I do like the way
it
Bradley Walsh.
happens several times throughout the episode, but that was like the first one and the one that most caught my eye.
I just reminded of when he first opens the door to see Aaron there, and we don't know who it is yet. Just nope. Just why he immediately closes the door. That was a great little bit. I quite like Bradley Walsh in this episode. Always sort of like being left behind as well. The TARDIS landing in his front room and
his poor chair.
Yeah, his poor chair.
So like. So as far as like characters stuff and Graham stuff goes, Aaron was his widow's son who was really never in the picture, never went to her funeral, all this kind of stuff. You can imagine how angry, sad, disappointed, whatever emotion you want to throw out there, he could be as a person, Graham. Mm-hmm. What does he do? He pulls out all of Aaron's doodlings and whatever as a kid, and has this amazing bonding thing with the guy. Like that is, and this okay. So that's that's Chibnall. That's not Yep.
Yeah.
But nevertheless, just from a character standpoint, that could have gone somewhere else completely and been so very valid. And we don't get that. We get this left turn into this this empathetic scene, and it's just it's just beautiful.
Mm-hmm. It's a very good scene, with a guy who, you sort of have learned to not like over the course of the series, having heard about him
in absentia, but yeah,
and then he shows up and here's the deadbeat dad, and then you sort of you gradually sort of like there's a human element to this. He's not just a villain or anything like that. He's not just
and more importantly, he's not even this typical deadbeat dad. Like you hear the term deadbeat dad and you have certain notions that might come to your mind, but he's just a guy who wasn't around. Like it's not like he had no money or whatever. Like he's a freaking engineer. Like he's a very smart individual. He's just like nope.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, and direction is what brings out, it gives you an impression on the characters and how you should feel about them. And, immediately because of the way Graham opens the door and you don't see him yet, like already you sort of get that you are rejecting this person. That is your initial instinct, is to reject this person
without even knowing who the person is.
Exactly, and eventually you sort of come around to it. Like I like how we're sort of taken through that, and it's only really he's never really the focus of the scene until it comes time for him to talk with Ryan at the cafe, which is a scene that was so important that it was the focus of the behind. I'm not going to say Doctor Who Confidential, but that 7 to 8 minute vignette they used to put on after it and showed up on the box set too. And that's where I think his character comes in. I think Ryan's character comes in too, because the way that Wayne Yip shoots that is he doesn't cut back and forth, and that's what I love about it. Is that when Ryan it's his time, that camera stays right on him. It doesn't cut away to reaction shots. Same goes for Aaron as well. We just see 100% what they're saying, and it's just like that's your focus right there. That is your focus. And also, what a tremendous amount of faith in the actor to have, like, you know your lines right, because you are saying it all in this one take. We're not cutting away. We're not cheaping out on this thing. And that's what I just found very satisfying, that scene, and how with all the super quick cuts and dissolves and stuff with other action things, but then when it came time to just have a dad and the son talk in a cafe about a very serious subject, it was just like as minimalist as you could get, and that's I found wonderful.
Yeah, I mean, okay, yeah. Again, obviously, the writing is the cornerstone to all this kind of stuff. But that's where the direction really comes into play. Is you have all this like frantic stuff going on when the Dalek is kicking the crap out of the soldiers, and the whole point is to make the viewer feel all like, like short of breath and whatever. And then you've got the cafe scene where everything just has this chance to breathe and develop and play out and slow down and all that kind of stuff. And that's the director, manipulating your emotions as a viewer. And
which is his job.
It's his job. And such an effective job it is.
Warren, you got any thoughts on Resolution? I'm sure Chris has a list, so
I have a few more things, but yeah.
I mean, I'm pretty sure Chris has covered everything I'm going to cover, but yeah, like it does balance a lot. It juggles a lot. Like the fact they got rid of Unit in a funny way and somehow get away with it,
right,
was actually kind of impressive.
Yeah. I'd
also,
like to know...
I think Jodie conveys the threat of the Dalek quite well, which sometimes they do and sometimes they don't. Individual doctors, and like Matt Smith, for one, did not really convey individual Dalek threats all that well, but I think she does. She really lets her companions who have no idea what this thing is know this is some serious business we're up against, which is not easy.
No, no, it isn't.
And she does a hell of a job selling the Daleks as the menace that they are shown to be.
I'd also love, I don't know if this how it was scripted or what, but the on-screen titles for the locations and stuff. I'd love to know whose inspiration those were, because I thought they were great, especially the government headquarters one.
GCHQ.
GCHQ. I thought that was pretty cool.
I would bet that's inspired by Captain America: Civil War, where the big placeholder titles are gigantic, and I'm sure other people have done that, but that seemed to catch on. After
That's
that.
true. Yeah.
But also, the Moffat era had a lot of that, where they would try to integrate words into like the scenery and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's the thing. But Heroes definitely not integrated. It was just like very superficial and yeah. Anyway, Chris, you had a list. I want to hear it.
In watching Resolution the other day, I had actually forgotten about the whole call center unit defunding thing. And then watching Spyfall Part 1 again, not long after that. There's the scene between Stephen Fry and Jodie Whittaker, where Unit is mentioned as is no longer being in existence, along with Torchwood. And when I first time I watched Spyfall Part 1, I had forgotten how and why Unit wasn't there anymore, but then I remembered.
Big Finish says otherwise, but okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Especially with Torchwood.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. The Doctor Who Time Fracture says otherwise as well. Yeah, so I'll try to keep things somewhat brief, because I know we're going a little longer than I think we planned on it. But a few things to throw out there. For the first time ever, we see the time vortex through the TARDIS windows.
Oh my
I
God,
know we talked about that.
So cool. Yeah, that was so cool. When they're in the TARDIS and the Doctor's using all the CCTV footage to try to track the Dalek and Lynn, on the highway or whatever, half the time the camera is like this 30 to 40 degree tilt, which just really puts you on edge as they're frantically trying to find the Dalek, which was really cool. There's a scene, so
when the doctor and the Dalek first meet, the Doctor sonics the Dalek and kind of locks up the gun for a bit, and the Dalek finally figures out how to unlock it. And then like you start blasting, and then Whittaker jumps like out of frame, or whatever, and stands behind like a dumpster or some such, and just like there's the two shot of the Dalek way in the background out of focus, and Jodie Whittaker in focus in the foreground, and they're just having a conversation, and it just looks so weird and awesome. There's another cool tilt of the camera when the TARDIS lands in Graham's front room to pick up Graham and Aaron.
Yeah, it's a very heroic shot. It travels 8 space, 8 time, as the camera pushes into him. I thought it was a very trailer-worthy shot, yeah.
And then there's a shot with the communications room at GCHQ is circular, and there's the camera kind of swinging around the perimeter, not unlike the Doctor going on Missy's cell. And then the Dalek comes in from above and settles down and all that, and it's just I just like the way that they're using the space and using it effectively.
Yes. Anything else on Resolution? And indeed, Wayne Yip's three episodes of work on Doctor Who.
I want to watch it again.
Yeah.
That was my prevailing thought after watching Resolution. Is like, I just want to go back to the start and watch this again. It's just so freaking good.
It's a fun episode, wasn't it? So would we want Wayne Yip to come back and do more Doctor Who?
No.
Yes.
No, I think he's finished. I think he's done.
Yeah.
I think he's done with Doctor Who.
He might very well be once he sees those American paychecks.
That's a very good point, actually. Very, very good point. Until the streaming service bubble collapses in upon itself and everyone comes scrambling back to the BBC to make Doctor Who again.
And nothing gets made because the coronavirus is mutated into the swarm from the invisible enemy.
Or the Dalek from Resolution, yeah.
Yeah, or both.
Yeah. Yep, tremendous director, tremendous person. We were so happy that he got to do a third episode because it meant we got to talk about him for an hour on this podcast in the Miniscope. So, so well done, Wendy.
And at Gallifrey won the first ever, not only the first ever coffee clutch I ever went to. The first coffee clutch I ever signed up for was Wayne Yip's, and I had no desire to go to any other one other than his, and I was so thankful when I got in to that. And I sat right next to him, and I said almost nothing in the whole thing, but just like he's a great raconteur. He's just a really nice guy. He was so open with his answers and everything. Like, obviously, there's things he's not allowed to say, or he has to, watch how he phrases things. But that's just life. But he's just such a really nice guy. And the talent as the director is just the icing on the cake.
That too. Nice guy, good director. That's why he works a lot right now in TV and movies. So that's what it takes, folks. Being nice and being good at your job gets you places, as it does with Wayne Yip, as proof because he was in the Miniscope. So that is the last Miniscope that we'll do for at least a couple months at the very least. But as we have done with the next commentary, which is also some way off in the future, we chose the next commentary, The Creature from the Pit. That's what awaits you at some point in 2021, folks. The Creature from the Pit. So exciting. We will be drawing the name of the next subject / victim for the next Miniscope, whenever that might be. It'll most likely be in sometime early in 2021. For those that you are wondering, we have literally
if we survive 2020,
that's Pandemic 2: The Revenge.
If we only have 18 subjects left in,
we have 18
right
left,
now. 18 left in the Miniscope.
Soon to be 17.
Soon to be 17. We have one composer, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 writers, so that makes 12 directors.
All right. Well, let's select one of them now. Then, Chris, you have the randomizer ready and waiting.
I was able to see how many directors and writers and stuff we have, so yes.
Okay, just a confirmation. But all right, then begin.
I don't memorize that kind of stuff. Come on.
Begin the spinning of it now. Always exciting. We usually draw these like at Gallifrey 1 like a couple weeks, but now we can like plan ahead. Like, you know, I find that looking forward to a commentary for the Creature from the Pit is actually like helping me. It's helping me get through the rest of 2020. Yes. I'm really actually quite excited about this. So
you lead a sad life, my friend.
Yeah. I was gonna say, yeah.
Well,
it's just adding to the existential dread for me. But
it is 2020. I mean, you know, we gotta pick our enthusiastic elements when we can. Anyway, let's see who the next Miniscope person is. Chris, stop.
We're sticking with the new series. One Rachel Talalay.
Oh, awesome.
Rach,
I have much to say.
There is a lot. That is at least a two-parter, folks. Because
I would say so. Yes.
She had
Speaking of amazingly nice people with amazing talent as well.
Yeah,
I agree.
Wow, that might be a three-part one. Just because
we'll figure that out in 2021.
We will. That's like 7 episodes worth, but like, you know, all 3 year-end two-parters and Twice Upon a Time. Boy, that's a lot. That's a lot to talk about and digest and to watch over the next few months before we do the next Miniscope with Rachel Talalay.
As much as anything, I think 3 parts would make the most sense because we have to do Series 8 finale as 1, Series 9, and then the last 3 for 10. I think it would make the most sense to break it down.
I think so. So on the next Miniscope, whenever that may be, a 3-episode spectacular on the works of Rachel Talalay. Look forward to that in the months to come, dear listener. But until next time, I am Stephen in Edmonton.
Born in Vancouver.
And Chris in Edmonton.
So long for now.
You've been listening to Radio Free Skaro. Find us online at radiofreeskaro.com. Follow us on Twitter and Tumblr at Radio Free Skaro. Subscribe to us on iTunes and donate to the show at patreon.com/Radio Free Skaro. Thank you.